Raven Radio, broadcasting across Midgard and beyond. With your distinguished panel, Grundir.
Not quite according to plan.
Complications arose, ensued, wherever come.
The Hitman.
It's a mythological creature and calls it what I want.
Bob the Same.
Why is the rum always gone?
Bill the Loremonger.
Who is this genius?
And Clovar the Barbarian.
I am gravely disappointed. Again you have made me unleash my dogs of war.
Only on the Supernatural Radio Network.
All right, welcome to Raven Radio. I am the Hitman.
Good morning, folks. Gunda here, out here in the middle of the desert.
And I'm Bill, the Lore Monkey.
Today, our special guest is Dave Carone from Ravencast. Bob the Same couldn't make it. Dana wouldn't let him play today. Hint, hint. And Clovar can't. I don't know what happened to Clovar the Barbarian. He must have got lost on the way to Bob's house. So it's just the three of us today. And Dave, I just want to thank you for coming on.
Not at all. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, today is Mother's Day. You know, I posted on Facebook earlier, you know, being heathen's pretty cool because mothers get two special days for them. They get Mother's Night in December, then they get Mother's Day in May. You know, can't go wrong with that. And, wow.
Whoops.
The Hitman hit the wrong button again. But no, you know, it's pretty good. You know, we've got a lot to owe to our mothers and our wives. You know, so it's good that they get 2 days in our faith instead of just one like everybody else on the planet has to deal with. But today, you know, we finally, after, gosh, how many weeks there, Dave, got you finally on the air with us. You know, I want to say thanks. You know, Dave, you know, we had some folks asking, why do you want to bring him on? He's competition. I said, well, in this, there's no real competition. Dave was the first. You know,
nah, not at all. And, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, we could have a million different people doing their own podcasts, and it would still be awesome. It'd be, you know, a million different ways to you know, for folks to communicate and tell us, like, you know, what they're doing. I don't find that competition at all.
No, but, you know, David, all hats off to you. You're one of the first ones out there, and you've been doing it about the longest now. I mean, Odin Lives went by the wayside a few years ago. There's been a couple of others gone by the wayside, but you've been in there slugging it out for how many years now?
4 or 5 years at this point.
You know, it's not bad. You know, we're on 3 months. Woo!
Yeah. Yeah, but you guys took on a weekly podcast, so, you know, kudos to you. Yeah. That's a pretty impressive commitment.
Well, it's fun, you know. Plus, we got SRN to back us up on this thing here, which means we don't have to fork out mega bucks to get the podcast out and do the live show plus with the chat room. So, you know, hats off to SRN for hosting us on this network here. But no, you know, back to the mothers, you know, we see a lot of things out there where some people talk bad about moms and all that, you know, and, you know, there's days that I remember as a kid, especially when Mom was chasing me down the street with a buggy quirt. Like, I had different thoughts, but now, you know, I look back at it now and, you know, it's like, wow, it wasn't that bad. I'm not in jail, I'm not dead, I'm not in prison, you know, so, hey, it worked out pretty good. So, Dave, you had something to talk about for Trothmoot? Excuse me, I can't even speak today.
Yeah, one of the other hats I wear, in addition to doing Ravencast and Spoken Lore, is I'm also the PR guy for the Troth, and, you know, our big event this year is, and, you know, every year is Trothmoot, which is going on from June 10th to the 13th in Hinckley, Minnesota. Nice, and we usually swap it around, try and get you know, either East Coast, West Coast, or the middle of the country. And this year it's the middle of the country. And
Minnesota, eh?
Eh?
Oh, I know.
Yep.
No,
yeah, Volkshof Kingsred is running it, and they've got a real bang up, huge, lots of things that they're doing. In fact, we podcasted a nice little interview with them. Going over, you know, for like, you know, 20 minutes of all the cool stuff that they got going on. So I strongly urge folks to, you know, take a look at the website. It's off the Troth website, thetroth.org. The direct page is thetroth.org/Trothmoot. Or folks can take a listen at Ravencast of all the cool things that they have planned. Or you can go to, we also have a podcast for the Troth. both at Podbean, and folks should listen in and hear of all those cool things that are going on.
Right. Yeah, what's pretty cool, you look at this year. This year is one of the first years I've seen in probably 20, 25 years. There are a lot of big moots going on this year. All Thing is going to be happening this summer. Then you got Troth Moot is going to be a great big one. They got Thunder Across the Plains is going to be another big one here. It's really impressive that all this stuff is coming together this year. Maybe somebody knows something that we don't.
Who's doing the All Thing? Is that Arizona also true?
I believe so.
Okay.
But it's cool. There's a lot of big gatherings this year, and it's nice to see that. For years. Last All Thing I went to was, 1989, 1990. Jeez.
To the All Thing?
Yep. It was one of the early ones where there was no organization, but it was still fun. But now you look at these organizations, they have really come together. We were planning on swinging by Troth Moot because it's going to be around the same time that we were on vacation, and Minnesota's, by New Mexico standards, is not that far from Indiana. And
That's true.
We were going to cruise up there, but things changed, and unfortunately we had to cancel our vacation due to some health issues. But hey, maybe next year.
So how's the evil plan for our mobile broadcasting thing?
Mobile broadcasting, as long as I am not out in the middle of the prairie somewhere.
The RV.
The RV? Hey, RV, yeah.
We gotta. Yeah, I had to remind him. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, wrong mobile broadcasting. Yeah, Ecto Radio and Raven Radio together have actually Hitman found a 1974 Ford Class C RV, and right now it's stuck 70 miles from here in Socorro, New Mexico, but we just got to get it up here, and we'll be able to broadcast mobile from that.
So, see, we ought to go to some of these events, and we could broadcast from the event.
Yeah, as long as we can get internet access, or use one of those Verizon cards or whatever. But, Dave, back to you. You've done a lot of, I've listened to a lot of your podcasts. I got a lot of them I just put onto memory chips, and that way I can pop them into my BlackBerry or whatever. But, you've done a lot of good work. You and Sandy together have done a lot of good work, and what really turned me on to you guys, I listened to Odin's Live and a few of the other ones in the early days, and they were depressing and monotone.
Yeah, Odin Lives really inspired us. We saw the concept and we're like, wow, this is awesome, but we could do so much better. And
exactly.
We felt we're like, this is a great idea, but we're going to polish this up and make it something significant and make it something that I hope to be a legacy. That of like, this is going to be one way that Asatru is presented, and be something for people to look at for years and years and years.
Right.
That's my hope.
Well, no, it is. You listen to some of the early shows, podcasts on Asatru back in the early days of podcasting, and it was, you could just see the darkness and just the fog, and it was, I don't know, to me it just seemed like, wow, I really want to get into this. Then when you guys came on, your wife is great. I get a kick out of listening to your wife on the show, and especially the way you two discuss things at times. But it's like they're people now. It's not somebody trying to be a 10th century or 9th century Viking and
right. Well, it's all about the living the religion.
Yep. Well, like we say, it's a worldview, and it's not. At times it is difficult. It is a religion
real
with homework.
People with real jobs and get out there and we do our thing.
That's great. Then Bill. Bill. I guess Bill. You and Bill have known each other for quite a few years.
No, actually not. We just met each other in Denmark last summer.
Oh wow. Yep. Must be cool to be able to go. Last time I was in Denmark, it was in the early '80s. It was beautiful then too, but
he's still beautiful.
Oh yeah. One of these days, I'll save up enough nickels and dimes, as long as the zombie apocalypse holds off for a little while. But there's just a lot of the stuff that you've talked about over the years on your podcast have been really good. One thing that we've been pushing over here, and I've actually got a lot of good responses from folks, and I got to send off some emails. Now that things have slowed down a little bit for me, is on family activities. Another guy that's playing hard to get like you were is John Sear from the Young Vikings Club. But I know he is doing a lot of stuff with the. Isn't he doing some Trothmoot? No, it's not. He's not with that. Who's he doing? I forgot.
No, his big thing is he's got 3 kids that he's a full-time dad.
Oh yeah, and also he
works 60 hours a week, and he's going to school.
Yeah, and East Coast All Thing, and then the Young Vikings Club and all that. But yeah, I want to get him on because we've had a lot of comments asking for information on him. Because we got a lot of folks that especially on Ossifulor, there's a discussion going on Girl Scouts. And, Girl Scouts nowadays, they teach them how to sell cookies and do some other stuff like that. And they do a few campouts. One of my assistant scoutmasters, his wife is a Girl Scout leader, so he's with them too. But the girls are always trying to get in with the Boy Scouts. Not, just because we get to go out, we get to camp, we get to make fires, we get to carry knives. Yay! And, I saw John's page and all that. And, it doesn't matter, boy or girl, they're all start at the same thing and do the same things. And that's really good. That's where I found out from him is from your page, for your podcast. So I mean, the information that you've put out over the years has been great.
It's actually fairly depressing. I saw an article that the Cub Scouts now have a badge. I don't think the Cub Scouts have merit badges, but one of the the awards they have is for playing computer games, which is just like. Thank you for completely, abdicating your mission.
Right. Believe it or not, that badge is actually it's a belt loop and a pin. They got a computer, and that is being changed this year. This is the 100th anniversary of Scouting, and they got rid of that requirement. Now you got to have computer technology, and the Boy Scouts have that merit badge also, but that's actually going away this year. Thank goodness. Oh yes, Gadkey, you're the only Canuck around here. Don't you know? You hoser.
Dave, I'm putting your a link to your webpage at Raven North up there, so that people know who we're talking to.
Oh yeah.
And let me give you the link for Trothmoot.
That works.
But we've this week, you look around and things. There's just been a lot of things going on in the world and all that lately. We got stuff happening in Arizona, and then we got the big discussion around my work of the earthquakes around the planet. Everybody's having earthquakes, except New Mexico.
I noticed that.
We always have them here too. Just everybody ignores them. I mean, from Socorro up to Jemez, it's always shaking here and there. Keep your stick on the ice. Oh, red-green show, eh? But we've talked a little bit about that before on Raven Radio here. Some of the stuff, and I've been following the what's the 700 Club? Yeah, it's the 700 Club's webpage, and yeah, it's getting interesting with them on the. And it's entertaining. I don't know if they're actually serious about this or not, but yes, the tectonic homosexuality has taken over the planet by shaking everybody up, and also that's that's getting kind of interesting. But this.
I love it when places like the 700 Club ask non-scientists about scientific stuff, and then the 700 Club is a joke in itself, but I mean, the media is just totally like CNN just has no grasp of reality anymore, I think.
Yeah, I listen to Christian radio almost every day going to work just to stay kind of angry.
But on Ecto Radio, we did a show about a month ago about conspiracies. And Bob went off. I mean, you know how when Bob goes off, he went off about this whole global warming, and he was talking about the different hypotheses that other scientists are preventing and how that's being repressed. And that is actually the highest downrated show we've had in a long time.
Yeah, that was a pretty good one. But, people ask, well, what do you guys think about it? Nothing.
About the earthquakes?
Yeah. I sort of get asked,
stand in the doorway.
Well, people, I'm fairly open about being heathen at my work, and most people know it, and they kind of just either, my work's pretty cool about it. But, you get some over there that says, so what do you think about all the earthquakes and all that? So that's basically all I say. It's a natural feature of the planet. It happens. Okay.
It's Loki turning over.
Yeah, Loki turning over and getting snake venom dripped into his face because his wife had to move the cup to dump it. Yeah. No, it gets interesting, some of the stuff we see about that and all, but one of these days it's gonna, we'll find out what it was. Was it Loki or is it homosexual tectonics?
Yeah. I'm not going to go past that.
Yeah.
There was a woman, there was a priest in Iran who basically said that the earthquakes that were happening over there were as a result of the women wearing revealing clothing.
Oh yeah, that's going to be. Yeah. That one's pushing the limit, but boob quake.
This was like 2 weeks ago, and this woman in Britain basically started a campaign to say, you know what, I'm going to wear some slutty clothing, and I encourage everybody on this date to wear slutty clothing, and we're going to make a scientific test to show this guy is a tool. And obviously nothing major happened. And
I remember Bob's sister got one of those T-shirts, and I was trying to get one for my wife, but my wife wouldn't wear it. At least not in public. I say rats, what can you do? But there's all these things going on. Also True Lore has been it's been a hotbed lately. We've had some pretty interesting discussions on that. Like one of the big ones is, well, we're going to save that for our night show. Oh, by the way, the votes are in. I told you we'd announce them.
Right.
And also True Lore and on Facebook, the overwhelming majority was for a Friday evening show. So, checking schedules and all that, we might be able to just do our first adults-only nighttime show, possibly this coming Friday, which would be the 15th.
Let's see. We'll check.
We'll check. We got to check schedules and all that. I know mine is actually not too bad, but I got to check Hitman's.
I'll check SRNs too. I don't think we have anybody on Friday at the moment, but that could have changed because we're adding new stuff all the time. So.
Right. We got.
Yeah, that is the 15th, by the way.
Yeah, we got to check with SRN, make sure that a time slot is open for
payday.
Us. And it's payday.
That's payday for me.
And it's payday. That's right.
We could stock up on
beer
stuff.
Beer.
Yeah.
Provisions.
Yeah. Yes. Beer, fuel, mead moderated.
But yeah, interesting things. So what to think of a good topic to talk about?
Oh yeah. Hey, I heard something that we got something new in the Ecto Bar here. The Magic 8 Balls.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. You noticed them?
Yeah.
I came up with a new concept.
Yeah, Cody here's got a new...
You know what I'm talking about? The Magic 8 Ball, and you flip it over and it gives you an answer to your question?
Yeah.
We were talking about divination. I came up with this brilliant idea. I found a bunch of them cheap for like $1. And I figured out how to open them. And I took out all the little messages, and I sanded them off, and I put runes on them, and put them back in there. And then, this is the cool part, I painted it up to look like an eye. Called Odin's Eye.
There you go.
And we could sell these to all, like that shop up there.
Oh, yeah.
In Edgewood.
Moriarty.
Beer money.
Moriarty, it's not Edgewood. Edgewood doesn't...
I know, I keep making that mistake.
I know, the 7 miles difference and 2,000 people. But yeah, the Odin's Eye Magic 8 Ball.
Yeah.
Did you paint?
See, a lot of people don't know that the Magic 8 Ball was how we determined what to talk about on the show.
Right.
And that's why it always, sometimes
and it's
we're
been
late.
For the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, I know. Chuck, what should we talk about? Should we talk about this? Ask again later.
Yeah.
So. But that's what's going on. What now? Do we want to go on to like we were talking about Odin last week?
Yeah.
But we didn't have Bill and we didn't have Dave.
Right. So, and plus, I know Bill has a lot of opinions. He's from northern New Mexico.
Yes.
That's guaranteed. I'm sure Dave, last week, I don't know if you caught the show last week. Last week we left off, we were talking about the Allfather. And, we had some, I might have to load up the podcast in my BlackBerry, stick my Bluetooth on so I can listen to it, because I forgot about half of it.
Well, Bob was we were jumping all over the place.
Yeah, it was a bouncy show last week. But, Allfather, a lot of people, I guess where we left off with him was, like me. I keep him at arm's distance. Yes, and I hear all the wishy-washy stuff. Well, if you follow Thor, then you must have to follow the Allfather because it's his father. No.
No.
No. That's my
short
opinion. And like my son Jacob was saying the other day, because he's reading a lot of the stuff about him, and he says, "But Dad, it doesn't sound like he's like Thor is trustworthy, but Odin, he sometimes does a lot of things that you really want to ask, why did he do that?" And I'm trying to explain to a 12-year-old that, yes, he does a lot of stuff that most people would call underhanded, under the table, sleazy. But, I told him, I said, he has an agenda to fulfill. And his agenda is he's going to do whatever it takes to make sure everything turns out okay. And, a 12-year-old is happy with that up to a point. Then he comes back a little bit while later. He says, well, but you said in Ragnarok everybody dies, including him. Okay. Why don't you go play? That's what he gives for having
the correct answer is that, for one, the assumption that we have is Odin sees a whole lot more of the big picture than we do. And the assumption that we have is that he's interested in not just saving his own skin, but saving us and saving things for the future.
Right.
So the hope and aspiration is that, we, to some extent, trust in Odin, that he's going to do right, and the end effect will be to the good. That said, our part in the larger play of the universe and in Ragnarok may be to be a speed bump. Odin may stamp punch your check quite a bit earlier than you're interested in for his agenda. So, yeah, I think taking him at arm's distance is prudent.
Yeah, Gadke's got something here. In the lore, Odin is deceitful, but what about battle victories credited to Odin, even those post-conversion? Well, from what I've read, and Bill is much better at this because he's a lore monger, he had a set agenda for those two. He already decided, okay, Hadding, you're going to win. Tryggvason, sorry, dude. Maybe he pulls out the 8-ball and shakes it up there or rolls a couple of dice. I don't know, but yeah, he does have his agenda, and he's going to accomplish it one way or the other. And if somebody doesn't like it, it's like most heathens, too bad. Let's see.
Yeah, and there's some other things about Odin, like the whole Allfather thing. I know that's kind of big in American House of True, that we tend to lean on that term, but actually that term doesn't show up until after the conversion, and it may actually have been a translation, early medieval translation of Omnipater from the Latin. Before that, Odin shows up pretty early on, like in the 700s, with the Saxons, and he was the primary war god for them. But in Germany, he's always had some of these almost agricultural type aspects around him. So I don't think the whole picture of Allfather is what we tend to lean on in modern Asatru. I don't think that's the whole picture.
Right, and there's a story, and I found it one time. Unfortunately, my 15-year-old laptop decided not to boot up today. It got power cord issues on it, and I got it bookmarked on that thing. But there was some talk that at one time that Odin superseded Tyr as head guy in charge.
Yeah. And I think also in some areas he may have superseded Thor. So I think it was just what was the current cult at the time. Semek, in one of his books, he follows the development. It was a late development of an Odin cult that moved up from the south end of Germany up into Denmark right around the time of the conversion. It was a completely different cult than they had before. And it shows up in the literature, it shows up on runestones, and he devotes an entire chapter to that. So, it's kind of interesting, but we don't often think in terms of cults. We think in terms of, Asatru is one big whole thing, but I've always been of the opinion that we really need to start reconstructing the cult, or the concept of cult.
Right, but unfortunately, in the modern 21st century, though,
right, I was just going to add that, not in the modern sense.
Yeah, cult equals bad thing. Bad things happen at cult. Jim Jones, Guyana, Waco.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know.
But one thing though, that's fine. Most heathens are better armed than most third world countries anyway, so we're ready for the zombie apocalypse.
Well, I think you could really look at cult in that sense, like we use the modern term sect.
Right.
You know, Christianity is divided up into, about 130 different sects. And, of course, they don't have any sects, but never mind.
Friday show.
But I really think that it's important to look at heathenry as being kind of a local thing.
Yeah, we discussed this before, you know, how Thor here in New Mexico is different than Thor in Iceland or whatever, or Odin.
Or northern Germany.
Yeah,
well, that's part of the Reconstruction experience. That's part of what we must do. I mean, you know, Odin is, you know, god of the berserker. You know, even back in the day, berserkers were folks you know, kept at arm's length.
Right.
And, you know, today when, you know, most folks, you know, are not attached to land, you know, the most battles that most people fight is in traffic. You know, in today's modern age, you know, where does an Odin's man, where does somebody who is a berserker, you know, where do they go? What do they do? And, you know, the correct answer is, you know, we send them off into, you know, Iraq and, you know, other places where they can still be useful. But, you know, the context of where people are, you know, the mindset for today are, you know, folks are, you know, really looking toward Odin as the god of wisdom, the god who's going to, you know, help fight off Ragnarok, and, you know, that's a more, I think, relevant aspect that we're, you know, looking at and analyzing that's going to, you know, help us a whole lot more in our lives.
Yeah, you know, but you know, you see a lot of the stuff, you know, about Odin and all that. You know, like I've got a couple of friends of mine that are heathen, and they call Odin the god of the computer. You know, god of information. You know, so you know, the internet is his.
That would be Bob.
Exactly. But
well, that's an interesting way of looking at it. I hadn't really run across that.
Well, that's Bob. You know, Bob. He says it jokingly and all that, but you know, Odin is he's complex. I mean, he's the god of kings, the god of death, god of high end warriors, I guess you could say. You know, your standard, you know, your poor schleppy infantryman with his club or his hammer or his axe, you know, can't afford a sword. Only the well-paid guys could own a sword. You know, they were kind of left out in the cold from the Allfather. Yeah, they'd offer up to him in hopes for the best. You know, you find some references to that. But most of them, though, you know, the Allfather kind of, you know, if you weren't able to advance his agenda, he's got better people to mess around with. At least that's my personal UPG on that. So, you got a button handy for me? No, he doesn't. He's
apparently not.
Hitman's asleep.
Yeah. UPG alert.
But you know, I honestly don't really know a lot about Odin. I mean, I've read a lot of the stuff on him, but I just never made it a point in my life to get to know him, I guess you could say. I got a good friend of mine, one of the best heathens you could ever meet, Eric, and I swear it's probably a blood relation with him, literally. You know, back when Eric was a teenager, you know, I swear the kid was going to pop out an eye, you know, just for the wisdom of it. But, you know, he knows more. I wish I could get him on the show, but his schedule there is more whacked out than most other people's. I would just love to get Eric on the show because, realistically, there are probably only about 3 or 4 people in all of Ossatru that I know of that know more about it than him. And, you know, he can sit there and discuss about Odin and give you lineage and history and stuff that it's just like, wow, where did you find that?
We have someone else on the line.
We do?
Yeah.
Well, put him on.
Hello.
Hello. There he is.
Who's this?
This is Gacki here.
Lucas!
Hey, Gacki!
What's going on?
Yeah. Well, nothing much.
So what do you got to add to this? And how's the Great White North? I heard you said it snowed up there.
Pardon me?
How's the Great White North treating you?
Oh, it's doing good up here.
Besides unemployment.
Oh, you know, well, that's something you got to do.
Yeah. So you've been following the conversation. What's your opinions on Odin?
Well, what I'm really interested in more is like I don't really have any opinions right now. I'm interested more in like when we talk about Odin as a god of wisdom or a god of death. Like, what does the Germanic concept of that mean, really? You know, I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, Bill would be better qualified for that.
Well, yeah, that's been one of my classic arguments for the past couple of years, is that I'm not a real big one on this. When you die, you get to go to Odin's Hall or Thor's Hall. And back in the 50s or late 1940s, Ellis Davidson had written a book. I think it's called Scandinavian Mythology or something like that. Right. Just, you can get it. Penguin Books sells a little paperback version of it. And she has a whole chapter devoted to Odin as the god of death. And it's interesting because there's also the translation of the word Valhalla. Actually, the word Halla could actually mean a rock or a mountain, and there's actually 2 mountains in southern Sweden that are named Valhalla.
Really?
So it could have been, he could have been just primarily a god of death at that point in time. And she was describing like grave finds and whatnot from around the 700s. I think the whole concept of Valhalla and the development of Odin really took off from a literature standpoint probably around 950. That's where you first see Valhalla written in 2 skaldic poems. One of them is called Eriksgata, and I can't remember the other one. Mm-hmm. And after that, I mean, it just took off until it got to the point of Snorri, where he had this really long, elaborate description of Valhalla. So, I don't know. I think there's some credence that I would have to give to CMAC for suspecting that there was a cult that moved up from the south of Germany up into Denmark at that period of time, considering the amount of development with that particular character, looking at him as a literary character at this point.
Got to interrupt just for a second here. I just noticed that my wife is on today. Just saw her sign into the chat room there, so happy Mother's Day, babe. Be home in about an hour.
Did she sign on with her real name?
The Magical Touch. That's her business name.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll give her a happy Mother's Day here, too.
I would say the book to look at would be The Road to Hell.
Yeah.
In terms of the looking at the whole like death and where the gods fit into that, but in particular with death and Odin, I think the takeaway is, to be honest, Tacitus, that whole dynamic of people throwing spears over the other force. That wasn't just a hail Odin and may he take that. That was a basically a mobile sacrifice. That the expectation when folks did that was telling the other forces that they were willing to sacrifice not just them but all their stuff, all their many months of labor of making all those armaments and metal and treasure and all the stuff that they got. They were going to take all that and put it in the bog and give that to Odin. And that's the kind of full sacrifice that I think is typical for Odin.
I would agree with that.
Looks like it's Jake that signed in under his mom's ID. Uh-huh. And Jake's telling me his computer's not working. But yeah, Davidson, she also had some stuff in her book Gods and Myths of the what is it? I forgot it now.
Northern Europe?
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking of, Gods and Myths of Northern Europe.
Yeah, she's got her thing on Odin there. It shows him pretty closely related to a couple of the Germanic, from the Germanic picture stones up there. Where is it at here? I had it up on the page here. Yeah, she says that warrior cult of Odin existed well into the late Viking Age. Both the Byzantine Greeks and the Arabs talk about the ferocity of the Vikings, during their attacks. So, was Odin behind that, or was it just sheer bloodthirstiness of our ancestors?
No, I think that that primarily the warrior groups, the Menabunda, that they were part and parcel to Odin cult. I also think that the Rus carried the Odin cult with them. Mm-hmm. I think it was an earlier version of it, but The burning of the boat is kind of a telltale sign, though.
So, Gadke, you still on?
Yes.
All right, great.
I'm just wondering, like, again, like, if you call Odin a god of death, like, what does that mean to a Germanic person? That's my question. Is like, does that mean you pray to him for a better death? Do you pray to him when people die? And what
that means
does
that means he's going to mess you up.
Big time.
Yeah.
No, I think God of Death is what I would have to consider as being really because I'm sure that none of our Germanic ancestors considered him a god of death primarily. It's just a modern interpretation of it.
And keep in mind, Freya gets half of those fallen slain too.
Right.
Yeah.
So that wouldn't it's not inclusive, I guess.
Slagegunner posted stuff from Harald Saga. I suspect indeed that it is Odin who comes against us here, the foul and untrue. You know, because I guess Odin, you know, one of his things was, I mean, look at the names that he has and the disguises that he had in his wanderings throughout Midgard. You know, he had a lot of, I mean, you could never tell, is that Odin or is it some nasty old man that's messing with my daughter?
Well, and also you got to think that a lot of what he does is not just gather information from, you know, with his magic and through Hildskaff and his, you know, looking out into everything, but he also went and you know, Mimir died, and he took the head, resurrected it, and pumps him for wisdom. And I can't imagine that's a unique kind of thing. I think he's got a whole you know, menagerie of corpses and folks that he you know, he pumps for information.
And that's true. That was one of his bynames. Was did they say that in English? Bynames?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. That was one of his bynames. Was Lord of the Gallows, and also as the Lord of the Dead. That he was a necromancer.
The Slagegunner. Did you see this? Bill Slagegunner tosses in there. Bill, what about Schleppner's ability to travel to the land of the dead?
Yeah, I don't know what to think about that.
An 8-legged
horse. There is. Well, it was in that same book that you just mentioned, Gods and Myths of Northern Europe, that they talk about the 8 legs of Sleipnir as being the pallbearers for the dead. So I don't know. It's really hard to say, because our ancestors, when they wrote anything down, did a lot of stuff with poetic pictures. So it's really hard to say.
You know, and you look at all the bad stuff. You know, I shouldn't say bad stuff. All the distasteful stuff of Odin and what he's done and what he does. Then you go and you read the Havamal. You know, it's just a totally like a 180. You know, I know it's a middle-aged.
That's from the medieval period.
Yeah, but you know, you look at that and it's got a lot of, you know, opposites of what, you know, we see in the lore about Odin. You know, first to him, you know, drilling his hole through the rock just to seduce a giant's daughter to steal the mead. His philanderings around with different giantesses and people, you know, throughout the ages. Then you read the Havamal, and it's just nothing but most of it. The first 30 stanzas of it are just nothing but good advice. Mm-hmm. Now some of them are a little bit odd, you know, like one guy pointed it out to me here. Hang on, I got to look it up here so I can quote it directly. But if one where he says, if you want to, let's see, hang on, let me look it up here. The one where he talks about taking another man's life. For the early wolf gets the ham to rise early to take another man's life. You know. That
yeah. And what do we say? The early bird gets the worm.
Right. You know,
yeah, it's the more bloody-minded version.
Yeah.
You know, and you look at stuff like that, and it's like, and people ask you about that, you know, because I point out the Havamal, and I put little quotes about here and there on there, and then you see some of that stuff like that, you know, and they say, well, why would you want to do that? And I said, well, you got to realize, during the time period that was written, that was an acceptable behavior. I mean, if you're going to go kill somebody, you might as well get it done early because you got a long day ahead of you still.
Well, you got to look at survival. I mean, survival was much more difficult then as well, and really a lot of it boils down to survival. I mean, that's not a constant theme, If you go through it, getting through Ragnarok, it being the end game, so to speak, it's all about survival.
Right. And on Ragnarok, though, but that is another touchy subject because, it sounds good, it's written really cool and all that, but it's a very late idea, at least from what I've understood about it. Yes, it's great. Odin fighting the wolf and Thor fighting the Midgard worm, and
now, Bill was mentioning something. There was different stories of Ragnarok, Bill?
Yeah, I ran across that. I can't remember now, but there was something like 6 different tales, and 3 of them end in kind of, typical fashion where everybody dies. And the other 3 were just major battles. Things got tore up, but that life went on differently after the battle. And we don't have any real good pieces of any description of Ragnarok until after the conversion.
Right.
Before that, we have pictures on rune stones that depict certain elements, like the fighting of the worm, and some of those tales. It looks like there might have been a bunch of different tales that were put together as a single poem. But there's nothing that shows up in continental Germany. There's nothing that shows up in any of the Gothic writings. Although the characters are still mentioned, like Sort is still mentioned, and the fire giants are still mentioned in the literature, but not in terms of a full-blown Revelations type Ragnarok.
Mm-hmm.
Are the poems like Baldur's Drama and then the Voluspa, are they written? And are they found in similar written manuscripts from the same era, same time, same place?
Well, actually, some of the earliest stories come from around the 500s. They just have little snippets of them. Plus, the what's written on the runestones and what's depicted on the runestones are pieces from what was later developed into the whole Ragnarok cycle.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's a late thing. And I think from the 500s would be the 6th century. The Christianity had already had a good hold over a good part of southern Europe, and it was spreading north. And one personal opinion, is it just was written to give a heathen point of view to it.
Yeah, and the other thing, it could have been written as a piece of propaganda to basically say your religion is dying, so come on over to ours where you're going to be safe and saved and all that stuff too.
But isn't Christianity also headed for death? But I guess there's no.
Yeah, they have a judgment day.
Yeah, the judgment day and Armageddon. The Trump blows and the
which is very similar to the whole Ragnarok story.
There's something like 24 different classical allusions taken from classical Greek writing in the depiction of the Ragnarok.
Yeah, but the whole, we're a world accepting religion is the thing. Is that we're here? Ragnarok is, at the end, all these bad things are going to happen. But
they may or may not.
Probably not going to be right. But it's our place in Ragnarok is non. Maybe I'm that third peon on the left, but our place in that is to live for the now.
Right, exactly, and I think that's what you get from the Havamal.
Right.
When you look at just the Norse logic, the logic was life embracing. It wasn't running away from it. I don't think death was ever viewed as a good thing.
Yeah, no honor was gained from the mead bench. You're supposed to do stuff.
Right, exactly.
Corpses no use to anyone, right?
Yep.
Not much.
Yeah.
Fertilizer.
What's always interested me is the last passage in that, the very last passage of the Voluspa, where they talk about Nidhogg coming in with corpses in his wings, and I read somewhere that there was debate over whether that was moving back into the present tense of where the story is happening, or if that was a continuation of what happens after Ragnarok.
Well, there's a couple of interesting things in that last stanza, because there's a couple of variations of it. One of them is that basically everything gets handed over to the Almighty God, and the word that was used in the Voluspa was Jamala, I believe, which was the Finnish word for the Christian God. So, I don't know, I can't remember how many stanzas are in it, and I don't have them all right in front of me right now, but about half that poem has a lot of just allusions taken from classical Greek. The rooster crowing, I mean, it's definitely, that even shows up in the Christian Revelations, I believe.
Right. Well, I could say, I saw that one time or another. But, the Voluspa and another one of the books there, but that one is just, like you said, just a collection of stories put together. I mean, and look the way it bounces. I mean, Odin is supposed to be questioning serious about history and about what has happened, what is happening, what will happen. But then you go into the naming of all the dwarfs. Well, okay, where did that come from? I mean, how did that just suddenly just appear into a poem? I mean, it doesn't bear no bearance to what's been talked about. It's kind of like what we do here at Raven Radio.
Yeah, exactly. I think go ahead.
I was going to say there are a number of times in the Poetic Edda that folks have naming and riddle contests. The whole Thor talking the dwarf or the troll to death until the light comes in. There's the back and forth between Odin and Thor. I mean, that's just a way of showing that of one's smarts, I think, more than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
It was the original Dozens kind of deal of I'm smarter, better than you because I can I know all this stuff.
The original.
I think that's where that's coming from more than anything else.
I think it was a drinking game. After you had so much. All right, name the other dwarf. Can't you get a drink?
There's actually some truth to that. There's a Icelandic tradition called Vikivaki, and basically it is a drinking game, and it runs basically just like that. It's like a early version of our roast and toast.
Now, if you guys want to do this up there in Edgewood the next time we get together, I'm not going to do it if Bill's in this.
Oh, come on.
We usually wind up doing it anyway.
Yeah, we normally do anyway, but after about 4 or 5...
That's when guys, I got to go.
Yes, but it's only after about the third or fourth bottle of Falcon Mead. Yes, local meadery here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Does a great job. A little cheap plug for them. But, you look at some of this... I mean, the Havmal, the Voluspa, Haralf Saga, and all the stuff where Odin's in there, and it's always wondering, like, man, except for the Havmal, basically, this is pretty one not-so-great dude. And but if you sit back and you think about it, maybe he did have a plan. And plus, we have to go. Well, like we said, like Bill and I and Bob and everybody has talked about, we have to go upon the writings of Christian monks or people that are Christian from the from the 10th century on that started writing this stuff down. And I'm glad they did, or we'd have nothing. And we just need to start trying to look more into the archaeological side of it. I mean, I'm not sure. We're not going to find the bones of Odin buried underneath a rock in Sweden somewhere.
Well, no, but one of the things we can do is I put up a link to the Wikipedia names of Odin, which gives I think it says 200. I don't know if it's quite 200, but it's still like 100 and change.
Hundred
different
agreed
names.
with Carl's Fanny for once. Sorry.
Yeah, I have a list that somebody posted that was about 180 gal from Iceland. Yeah, and most of them are not real nice names.
No, they're not.
Well,
there's no names like Happy Camper or
there's no names like Happy Camper, but I mean there are a lot of them are not quite so evil as that. Gangthrad, Advantage Council, Forney, Ancient One. Some of them are Gore and Spearmaster, but
yeah, those could be positive.
I just posted a Wikipedia page about him.
Depending which end of the spear you're on.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, some of them on here are pretty good. Father of Men, Man of the Age, the All-Father, the Aged, the Light of Frigg, the Eagle's Head. Then you go down here, Spear Shaker, Flaming Eye, Brown Bear, Bale Worker, Evil Worker.
Yeah. Would a name like Evil Worker be Christian, or would that be perhaps?
I don't know. It's
no, that's Bulwark. That's that's specifically a name given
to him.
Yeah. Well, no, given by himself. That was when he got the mead. You know, before that he went over and offered his services to this landholder. To help him out, and said, the guy was like, oh, well, who are you? Oh, I'm Bulwark.
And I'm going to kill your workers.
If the guy calls himself Evil Worker, maybe you really shouldn't hire him. I don't know.
Hey, he did a good job. He did a good job in clearing the fields, though. After he killed caused the other two to fight with each other over a whetstone and kill each other.
Yeah, and killed 9 guys.
Well, the thing is, he's a complicated god. And I think out of all of them, he's the most complicated because you have all of these different kinds of references and aspects. Yeah.
The most common name of him is Grimar, the hooded one, the masked one. Why would you call yourself that? But we can't really bring him on the show and say, well, Allfather, so how did you get that name? It'd be cool up to a point, but I'd do it by remote.
Yeah, with a false name, huh?
Yeah, with a false name and a fake IP address.
Evil radio host, maybe.
Evil.
Because it's not like Odin wouldn't find out if he really wanted to.
Well, I think one of the things about Odin that's kind of interesting, more so than the other gods, is that he does go among people. I mean, he's constantly down scrounging around on the earth trying to discover things.
Ravens?
I think all the gods to some extent do that. I mean, Thor in particular notes, he's got all sorts of travels, but he travels, or he used to travel, before he got tied up with Loki, and he had a small band of folks that he went out and around with, and I think the expectation, our takeaway from that is the same, that of the gods are interested in what's going on around them in Midgard and Jotunheim and other places, looking for cool stuff for people.
Well, Hitman just ran out of the studio because he saw a couple of ravens sitting on the fence outside of the studio.
You're so busted. They're going back and they're telling him you're talking shite.
But yeah, I mean, you look at Allfather, like Cody was saying, it's difficult to understand him at best. At least for me, I'm as Bill and I like to say, a staunch Thorsman. Have been for more decades. Oh gosh, this quitting smoking's killing me. Trying to chew gum and talk at the same time. He has a purpose. He has a very defined purpose, and his purpose is, like Dave said before, is just to make sure everything works out in the end. And we may not like it, and a lot of people didn't like it, and a lot of people really had some. Like one of them here, his other name's Overthrower. What's he overthrowing? I probably describes his spear throwing ability and all that. But he has a lot of aspects that are to be respected. Yeah, he's the guy that took it upon himself to do the dirty work. Even though he's supposed to be head of the line, sits in the high seat and all that, he's the guy that took it upon himself to do the dirty work that nobody else wanted or was able to do. And I do respect the man, the god for that. Can't really call him.
You notice how the Raven showed up, and all of a sudden his tone changes.
Yeah, I got to get off.
He's a good guy.
No, I never said he's a good guy. I said he was a guy that decided to take on the dirty work. Is Eric showing up? Because every time ravens are flying around, Eric wandered in the door.
Well, I'm trying to get back in contact with him so we can have him on here.
Well, I got his phone number. Phone number and email address. But.
I always think it interesting that with the Havamal, like the first line after creation is, and the Norns showed up, and basically my takeaway from that, not the Havamal, Voluspa, of that was as soon as Odin and the gods created everything, that the end was foretold. That the whole act of creation basically writ its destruction.
Right.
And that ever since, Odin is trying to, fix, delay, get something out of it. And what we should, I think, learn from that is there's all sorts of unintended consequences for things. And, Odin knows that and knows, the larger picture, so that unfortunately we maybe, our part in that larger picture may not be what we want, or is healthy for us as individuals.
Right.
But the bigger picture's got to go on.
And it kind of points down to where a lot of heathens, myself, I really believe in that, is like you said, that the creation of Midgard foretold its end. And, in the same way with people, like
or anything for that matter. Everything has lifespan attached to it.
The way I look at it, this is my personal opinion here. Our life is it's already set. The beginning is set and the end is set, and what you do in between determines the type of person you are. But no matter how much healthy living, vegetarianism, quitting smoking, whatever, that's not going to change the end date. It just might change a little bit of how you arrive there. Personally, I want to be worn out, beer in one hand, cigarette in the other, sliding into third base when I go, clawing eyes, biting and scratching the whole way through. But, when you go into the Allfather's aspects of it, like where we go here, Slag Hunter says, I warn my kids against complicated people. Yeah, and that is about as complicated as you can get. I mean, you look at the other gods and goddesses of it, they're pretty much defined. Who they are, what they do, and it's similar throughout different parts of the world. They all have a similar function. But the Allfather, I mean, some countries hold him up as a war god. Other people hold him up as a god of death. And other people hold him up as the god of wisdom, Bob included. But,
how accurate would you guys paint the Wagnerian kind of picture of Wotan? If you're going by that, it sounds like a lot of the stuff you're saying kind of agrees with that. It was like the character in the operas.
It does. He based his stuff on the Nibelungenlied, and that's basically how he was depicted in there. I don't know how old the Nibelungenlied is, though. I don't have an age for
that one. If folks that hang out in True Lore, you see there's a huge discussion going on in Valhalla. And, I agree with Bill. More likely we're not heading up there. Most of us aren't heading up there.
No, I don't figure we are.
They got other plans for us. Whether it be worm food or fighting in Ragnarok, we'll find out when it gets there. But trying to put the Allfather into a nice, neat little pigeonhole, context, index, folded, spindled, mutilated, and stapled, you can't. You could do that.
I think that's our tendency nowadays. Our other tendency is to take all these different pictures of Odin, like the German picture of Odin and the Norwegian picture of Odin, kind of blend them together into this pan-type Odin. And I don't think that was ever really the case. Again, I think that it really goes back to what the local cult held to be true and what their needs were.
Yeah, and that goes back to what Bill says. Maybe we should bring back the local cults. Leave the door alone, Hitman. He keeps looking at the door. Is he coming back?
No, I'm just,
But yeah, maybe we are right. Like I said, like Bill said, bring back the local cults. That is true reconstruction of this faith. I mean, you can't just have, okay, this is the Icelandic way. Well, this is New Mexico. Or this is Denmark, this is Germany, this is Bosnia, this is whatever. We see things through a different worldview. A discussion that we're having on True Lord, it actually pertains to this. And let me see if I can find it here, and I'll post it. I'll post some of the highlights of it. It started talking on the immigration reform that's happening across, in Arizona, and we'll save the meat of that discussion for a night show where we can get down and dirty on this.
Yeah.
But let me get it up here. Bill talked about the differences of New Mexico, how we see things here. And I'm going to pull it up here, and I'm going to read about it. I'm going to read it here. Let me find it. But you look at how folks see things in Texas, and how folks see things here how they see things in Canada or in England or whatever, and we see things totally different. Let's see here. Oh, here we go. New Mexico. it's they're talking about how what we call them mojados, which is a polite, well, not really a polite term. It's just a local term for wetbacks, and it can mean anything like that. But the prejudice rankings here in New Mexico goes from Tejano to Mojado to Black to Indian to Mexican to Gringo to New Mexican to Spaniard. No other state really will rank a person like that. We talk about speaking with a Texan accent always takes off a lot of point. A Texan who is rich and has large knockers counts off even more point because everybody knows that Tejanas are so flat the boobs must be fake. And that's just our local opinion, and that local opinion, believe it, only fits from Santa Fe north. Now you come Santa Fe south, totally different world. We have our own beliefs. They have our own cults. I mean, here, big thing, Albuquerque, South Valley, the biggest thing you see here is old English writings on the sides of lowriders and engraved into the windows and bathtub virgins.
Oh, yeah.
And for folks that aren't familiar with New Mexico, bathtub virgin is normally a female saint in a archway that looks like a bathtub stuck in somebody's front yard with flowers in it.
Yep. I have one over at the ranch.
But this is local. This is local to New Mexico. You generally won't see that elsewhere. Texas, they have their own way of beliefs. And, maybe the local cult needs to come back.
Well, and we do have local cults here, too. I mean, New Mexico's a pretty old state. I mean, it's been settled for 350 years. And the church has only had a big influence over the past 100 years. Of course, the Mexicans, when they moved up here, brought Catholicism with them, but it was adapted. And up here, I know in town here, well, where I live in Las Vegas, this was the center of the Penitentes, which was one fairly large cult. And then they have all these smaller sociedades, which are small cults that might only have 10 to 12 members. And they're all associated with the Catholicism here, but the people just prefer their smaller cults. And each of those cults have their own set of beliefs. In fact, the Penitentes still have their own printing press in Santa Fe. They print all their own literature, and they interpret how they feel is proper.
But yeah, that I think that would be a good thing to try to work on. I mean, it would be a lot of work because then you'd be breaking away from the standard doctrine of Icelandic also true.
Right.
I mean, it's a good way to look at things, but it doesn't fit. I mean, New Mexico doesn't really have a lot of ice. We got a lot of fire, forest fires, grass fires, range fires, and we are pretty volcanic as a state goes. But, you try to look at it, and it just doesn't fit the worldview of me looking out my front window and seeing Thunder Mountain. I've posted pictures of that on Austru Lore before, or the way Bill looks out and sees Hermit Peak. Or Hunder, I know he sees whatever he sees out of his window out in Texas, or Gadke, what you see out your window in Canada.
CN Tower.
The what?
The CN Tower. It's the world's largest freestanding structure.
Oh, wow.
All right.
But, if we've talked about it before, the gods are local. And we've talked about it before. If you folks that have read American Gods by Neil Gaiman, that has, that fits. I mean, yeah, he's not heathen. He took a lot of resources, and he had a lot of research done to that, but he says it is a different thing. The Shadow finds Odin in America, Mr. Wednesday, and he's a typical dirtbag American con man. And at the end of the book, he finds him again in Iceland, and he's a totally different person. That's the way I kind of see it here. What I see of Odin here. Yeah, I mean, I'm going up prejudiced by the lore and the way he's talked about it in the lore. And you see, but, maybe he's not quite that way here. I see him as, kind of the guy in the, not so much a dark suit, but dressed out in a dark jeans, dark shirt, dark vest, and a hat. Maybe that's him here. We don't know.
That would be a cowboy.
Funny, Bill.
With a beard.
Yes.
I think that the cult thing should be investigated, and it's something I think that we've neglected in modern House of Truth for a long time because we tried to focus our attention on creating large central organizations with kind of a centralized, set of dogmas, really.
But, well, yes and no. I think there are national organizations, but I think the real pump to the community is actually been the kindreds. I think it's really been a much more local level than people like to give credit for.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, because look at us. We don't have any kind of affiliation with any of the larger ones. We want to do our own thing, you know.
Yeah, but I guess what I'm trying to point out is that back to and the All thing that I went to in 1990 or 89, about half the people there were dressed in Viking clothes. The other half were dressed in military fatigues. But
I was one of the ones in military fatigues because I was in the military at the time.
Well, I think there were a couple of people there from the military anyway, or they had been in the military for a lot of years. But my point is that, these guys are trying to they were trying to revive the old Germanic customs and put them into place here, and I don't think that you can necessarily do that. We don't live in Norway or Iceland 1,000 years ago, or Germany for that matter. We live in New Mexico here, so we don't kill a pig on Christmas. We make tamales instead.
That's right, tamales and pozole.
And pozole. Because
but also, the problem with that kind of mindset is it's not like we can turn the clock back and just pretend we don't have modern plumbing and all sorts of other things like that. Medicine. Who needs that? Do you really want to do that? Try to go camp out and live in a 1000 AD lifestyle. What?
Not me.
I know once a year for a week or so might be fun. As they call it, the SCA and the Grand Outlandish. Other than that, I kind of like my soda Posturepedic. I like my computer, my telephone, and I like fresh food out of an electric powered refrigerator.
Yeah.
But Allfather, Odin, Wotan, Grimmer, Masked One, as I used to say, one-eyed, wine-drinking, nasty bastard. Our hats off to him. He is doing a job that nobody else wants to do. Even though he's supposed to be number one on the totem pole, he goes out and he takes care of the dirty business to make sure things keep rolling smooth.
Yeah, and he goes to any lengths to get the job done. I think that's what makes him kind of a scary type god sometimes. Yeah. Loki, he's just purely selfish.
Yeah.
Whatever he does is just for himself, but Odin's had an agenda from the outset, and I think that, no matter what you can say about the descriptions of Odin, he's always had that agenda. That shows up in every piece of literature. There is an agenda.
Well, folks, looking at the time here, it's 8 minutes after 12 Mountain Time, and as we went over.
It's not like we got anybody behind us. There has to be a moment of separation. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, thanks a lot to the people who came in and talked with us today. So you guys are welcome anytime.
Dave, thanks again. And you and Sandy do a wonderful job out there, and I get all your podcasts. It's nice because I can download them and listen to them as I like.
Well, that's why we did them. So we appreciate
it. You're doing a great job.
Yep.
Keep it up. We'll have to get back together and play some coop sometime.
Absolutely.
Get together. Maybe we'll just meet somewhere in the center of the country that's closer to the west and east coast, north and south. Hey, Avon, Indiana, invade.
There you go.
There you go.
All right, folks. Well, been a great show. Next week, a couple of people have expressed interest. We got one of our first guests has got a new book out, Scott Monacan. We might be bringing him back on again. Let's see. I know what I can't even pronounce her name half the days. The famous Seath woman, Yvonne Desmond, has been talking with her. We got to get her on. Her schedule is cleaned up, because she has if you ever read her Facebook, and she's got a lot of good, you read her stuff on Facebook and you think, oh my gosh, Fluff Bunny Maximus over there, until you actually talk with her. And this lady is, really squared away. She's going to be on here in the next couple of weeks. Let's see, who else do I got a couple of other folks lined up to get on the show here. Also, Gadkey, music, send it out. Get yourself on here. Maybe you might, we've been asking you that for months, the 3 months that we've been on. Get your stuff on the air here. Anybody, you want to send anything in, you want to be on the show, you want to talk about whatever, let us know. Skype in, dial in. This is your guys' show. You guys, if you let me run it, it could get really interesting. We'll be talking about guns, a zombie apocalypse, and how to plant peas.
Well, there's a pronunciation there for you. Ingona Wisniewski.
Sure.
I guess.
Thanks, Carl Sweeney. I appreciate that. But, yeah, we'll be back next week. We'll have some new guests on. Dave, anytime you want to jump in,
Call,
Skype in, whatever you want. You're always welcome here.
Appreciate it.
Take care. For Gatke.
Yep.
You too.
See you guys next week, man.
Luke, take care.
Bye, all.